This video is all about teal, and teal is our highest transitional colour at the moment. Teal is made up of the colours blue and green. Blue represents the throat chakra, green represents the heart chakra. So if we mix these two colours together, what we're getting is a deeper hue than the colour that we saw in turquoise. And if you remember, what we were talking about in turquoise was intuitive intelligence. So really what we're saying here is teal is all about that, but we're taking it up a notch. We are interested in who we're becoming when we've the fully realised human. And it's really all about that new vision for society.
Absolutely. So if I was to think about what represents teal at the moment, the first thing that comes into my mind is the peacock, because especially the male peacock, when it puts out its fan, it's beautiful hues of blues and green. And if we look back to what that symbolised in early Christian times, it was the symbol for death and rebirth. So let's take an example in business today to explore that a bit further. We see this sort of phenomenon of death and rebirth in mature industries that are fearful about losing relevance. So an example of that would be BT. So back at the turn of the century, they were in the mobile telephone network. They then got involved in the race to compete for 4G license, knowing intuitively that that was the way it was going and that they needed to be in it. So they got a 4G license, but they'd overexposed themselves and spent way more than they thought they were going to on the cost of the 4G license. And so people at top panicked, thought, we can't sustain this. We need to make more money to meet the needs of our shareholders and pay the dividends, etc. So they sold their telephone network O2 to Telefonica back in 2006. So in the short term, that was definitely the right decision because it gave them, increased funds, etc. But they recognised as time went on that they'd made a big mistake because the way the industry was evolving required you to be in mobile telephony, and they no longer had people with those skills in the business. So 9 years on, they got the green light from the CMA to purchase EE so that they therefore had mobile telephony. Now that's great, and you can say, well done, they sort of redressed the balance, and on a level that's absolutely right. But the whole death and rebirth process that we've witnessed there cost them far more than if they stuck to their guns initially and kept on, even though they were strapped for cash with what they had.
And how we see teal playing out in the more wider society, I think we first need to look at recognising that business is part of the wider ecosystem of society itself, and society is part of the wider ecosystem of the planet, the cosmos. And so we've almost got two forces at the moment. We've got the voice of doom and gloom. We hear every day, don't we, more scientific evidence to suggest that, we're going into extinction. The planet is not going to survive. The polar ice cap is melting. Of course, we've seen the devastating hurricanes and the damage in the Caribbean. And, we've got more earthquakes being recorded over the last 5 years than I think we've had over 100 years. So yes, we've got to pay attention to this. But then there's this other force, this other view, this opposing view, which sort of says, well, actually, Mother Earth is just in a process of rebalancing and is coming back into full order. There's a death and a rebirth going on for the planet.
Yeah.
And I guess for us, it's about what do we mindfully want to choose to believe, and where that might take us. And so interestingly, we're seeing a whole plethora of new industries coming around, this new vision for our planet, which of course is building on what's gone on before. We've got artificial intelligence coming in, green, clean industry energies. So it's less about polluting someone else's backyard and more about doing the right thing for all.
So if we want to build on that, we can see that in theory as well. We talk about complexity theory, and that one of the key components of that is to say, well, actually, order only comes out of chaos. And if we take that, look at the natural world, you have this devastation, masses of fires burning in California, but overall, when nature will regrow, and when it grows back more beautifully than before. And we almost need destruction in order to have the creative force and to create something that's really worth having. But we have to have the trust and be, stick to non-attachment, knowing that there's a greater force at work here beyond what we can see in the actual moment.